Ms. Claudia Rodriguez, have we received any public comments on item 4?
President Otwater, at this time, we have not received any public comment requests.
Okay. We'll move on to the minutes. On agenda 5, we have 3 minutes. 5A, March 17th, 2022, April 8th, 2022 special board meeting, and April 21st, 2022 special board meeting. I entertain a motion and a second to approve the minutes.
Motion.
Got that, Tony? And do we have a second?
Second.
Great, Sarah. I ask Claudia to call the roll on the minutes.
President Atwater,
Yes.
Director Millibar,
Aye.
Director Estomera,
Aye.
Director Palmer,
Yes.
Director Martin,
Aye.
Director Chang,
Aye.
and Director Anafdawi.
Yes.
Excellent. Minutes have been approved.
Great. Consent calendar. 6A is to approve resolution authorizing virtual board and committee meetings pursuant to AB 361.
I move we approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Thank you.
Calling the roll, President Atwater,
Yes?
Director Millibar,
Aye.
Director Estomera,
Aye.
Director Palmer,
Yes.
Director Martin,
Aye.
Director Chang,
Aye.
and Director Anafdawi.
Yes.
Okay. Approval of the consent item.
Great. We'll move on to agenda item 7, discussion items. The first one, 7A, is the April DCA monthly report. And I'll turn. Whoops, a little noise there. And Claudia, please let me know if you have any public comments on any of these staff presentations. But we'll go ahead and get started with 7A. Graham, are you ready to go?
I am. Thank you, President Atwater. So I'll just walk us through first the elements of the monthly report. Let's go to section 1, please, Claudia.
One moment, please.
I have a question, and this is just a little logistical question. Is there any way we can get a camera that shows something other than the backs of our people there?
Well,
Just asking.
Hang on 1 second. It's possible.
I mean, you guys have great hair and all that, but
Okay. Well, we'll go ahead and proceed, I think, while that gets worked on, Director Palmer, because we can't see it. I don't actually know what we see. So we'll just proceed with the monthly report. So beginning with some of the programmatic activities, and we're going to talk about this as part of the next item on the agenda. One of the program focus has been continuing to develop the budget for next fiscal year, FY 22-23, and so we'll be reviewing that along with elements of the work breakdown structure. Also relevant, down under the administration task, I wanted to just highlight the continued activities associated with this project, the hybrid boardroom meeting activities. There's been a lot of very good progress, and we're almost there, and so I think we're all getting to be part of this shakedown experience as we work through the system, but very excited to have the room up and running, and look forward to continuing down a hybrid path. Also, within the administration activities, we've been continuing to push out a lot of information via our social media outlets, also creating informational videos about DCA formation, et cetera. So A lot of good activity on the administration side. With respect to engineering, the engineering team continues to focus on supporting the Department of Water Resources, permitting efforts, as well as furthering various engineering studies. The engineering studies are intended to document concepts for future consideration during design phases down the road. On the fieldwork side, we have continued our efforts to collect and evaluate delta-wide subsurface conditions. This is to validate parameters assumed during the conceptual design. So in the April month, we had a lot of activities associated with planning and preparing to conduct our spring program. So just limiting ourselves to April activities, we did start environmental clearances for those sites, and then a preview with respect to work coming in May. We have actually begun subsurface investigations in May and have equipment out in the field conducting those investigations. Any questions on the work performed before we jump to the next section?
President Atwater, if I may.
Oh, please go ahead.
Thanks, Graham. And as usual, you guys provide an excellent summary. I guess the one question, feedback from me or? No, good, okay. I guess I just have one question under engineering, and maybe it's just my unfamiliarity with the McCollum review work. I was just kind of wondering what that was about.
Sure. So East Bay Mud has put out a notice of preparation regarding a proposed aqueduct tunnel project, and so it would has an alignment that would potentially intersect with the Delta Conveyance project, and so it was just looking at the very preliminary information that's been issued and providing any feedback or thoughts there.
Thank you.
Questions on section 1? Okay, Claudia, let's go ahead and jump to the next item, I believe is the budget summary, please. Yeah, great. So we have, just as a reminder, our total available funding for the current fiscal year would be just under $24.5 million. The way recalling how we got there, we started with $21.5 million at the beginning of the fiscal year. That included zero contingency, or what we also call unallocated reserve at that point. And then underruns from the previous fiscal year were rolled over in July and then again in January to push the total available funding up to the number of just under 24.5. At this point, we're projecting an estimate at completion for the current fiscal year of just under 20 million. So that's going to leave a collective underrun between last year's underrun that we rolled over to current and then the current fiscal year coming in about $1.5 million or so under. We're going to have a collective underrun of just under, well, somewhere around 4.5 to 5 million. It's still a little bit of a projection. You can see with the current commitments column there, the third dollars column, we've committed about 17.8 million at this point, and that was as of the end of April. So we have some final commitments that we're reconciling in the contracts. That's associated with the field work. So once we have those numbers dialed in, we will continue to reduce uncertainty in the estimate at completion, but we've got it pretty well dialed in, and we do have a pretty significant collective underrun. I think before we could take questions here, but I was just going to also jump to the, Claudia, to the expenditure plot, please. Almost there. Too far. Keep going. There we go. So what's reflected in this, you can see the actuals shown by the yellow bars, the actual invoiced amounts shown by the yellow bars have tracked pretty consistently. There's been a slight uptick in March as we brought on our new geotechnical contractor and they've been starting to ramp up. I would expect the months of April, May, and June to be pretty close to the projected blue bars there. So you can pretty quickly get a sense of where the underrun has showed up. We started updating these projections as we were rolling over funds from last fiscal year. So the blue bars and the blue line actually represent the $24.5 million total funding. So in looking at the way things have actually gone for the fiscal year, the underruns in December, January, February, March, those are each about $1 million or a little over $1 million. So it's pretty easy to visualize that, that's really where the underrun has materialized and collected that we've now got for the total fiscal year. But I would expect April, May, and June to have actuals pretty close to the projected blue bars now that we've got the field teams up and running. So any questions on the budget amounts before we go to the program schedule?
Yes, Graham, Director Gary Martin has his hand raised.
Thank you. President Atwater, I probably answered my question just before I put my hand up with the projected underrun at this point, close to the end of 2022, whether it's going to be reflected in any sort of schedule. If you just indicate that he projected that we catch up to at the end of this, and we'll get all the field. If I'm not correct. So
unfortunately, Director Martin, I can't hear your question very well. It's kind of garbled. I'm sorry about that. Could you try and repeat that for us, and let's see if it comes through clear.
I'll try it again. I won't repeat the fact that I thought you answered my question right before you stopped speaking. Wondering whether the projected underrun now doesn't appear to be so. If you said the blue line's going to catch up, whether we're projecting any schedule impact for this year.
We are not projecting any schedule impacts. I think the largest part of the delta that we're talking about with respect to the funding was associated with collection of field data. And we do have that program up and running. And I think in reality, we built the schedule for the year all the way back last June, and we're right on track with that. As we were rolling over funds, we were hoping to be able to advance further with the field program as we were working our way through the year, but in reality, it just hasn't panned out that way. So we're on track, and we're very much consistent with our original plan for 21.5, and we've just been carrying that underrun from last year through this year. We've got a little bit more than that, though. Yeah.
Thanks, Graham.
Sure.
Vice President Sarah Palmer, you have your hand raised. Literally.
Yeah. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. One of the problems, I'll speak slowly, is because we have both the microphones with our computers and the microphone in the boardroom. So you have to turn one of them down.
Okay, you sounded very clear, so that worked.
That's because I'm speaking very slowly.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Which is hard for me.
I could tell you that sounded great.
Good.
Okay, any other questions?
I don't see any from the
President Atwater, if I may, sorry, I'm not able to raise my hand except my real hand. So, so I guess in summary, Graham, and apologize if you've actually covered this. So it sounds like there's about $5 million or so in the variance, and most of it sounds like it's attributable to the field work and well, I guess because of COVID and all these other ancillary issues that we're not able to kind of get the field work that we projected or estimated to get done in a timely manner.
That's right. We rolled over $3 million from last fiscal year, and we haven't really touched that. And we've accumulated another 1.5 or almost $2 million over the current year. So the big bulk of it came from FY 2021, and a large part of that was work that was intended to be done in the field that didn't get done. And now here we sit, and we've still accumulated a little bit more positive variance, but that's the large chunk of it.
All right, thank you.
Graham, I don't see any other questions. I'll just ask Claudia, do we have any public comments?
President Atwater, there is one more slide that Graham is intending to cover in the monthly report. And no, at this time we have not received any comments for requests, sorry.
On the subject of schedule, we did just want to touch on the fiscal year's program schedule. So I think, Claudia, if you would advance that. So I think this connects with a lot of the questions that we've been talking about so far. We are in a good position for the year. We're on track with the schedule that we laid out at the beginning of the fiscal year. The graphic on the bottom just puts this year into context. We are approaching the release of the public draft of the EIR by DWR this summer. But overall, for this current fiscal year, we're very much on track. So now, I think we're done, unless there's any questions on the schedule. I see Vice Chair Palmer.
And Vice President Sarah Palmer, you.
Yes. I find the thing on the bottom to be quite useful. What might be nice is to also have some kind of a yearly statement there into where, like, say, for example, we start construction and that type of thing.
Well, that's intentionally not identified because there's so much uncertainty around when that might happen that it would be quite a stretch to try and identify that.
Understood. Understood.
But thank you. I understand.
All right. Any other questions from members of the board?
I have a quick question. Graham, are you seeking approval today for the budget?
No, today's just the draft budget. We'll be coming back in
Okay.
June for the approval.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. And Claudia can correct me, but we don't have any public comments on the draft budget.
President Atwater, at this time, we have not received any public comment requests.
Good.
It looks like Sarah has her hand up.
Yet again. The reason I wanted to point this out is because sometimes if the public looks at what we're doing and we don't have any questions, it isn't that we're not thinking about it, except many of our questions were raised previous to this, and staff has been gracious enough to answer them.
Good point.
Yes. All right. Well, let's move on to 7C now. This is a conflict of interest code amendment. Graham,
7B. Sorry, President Atwater. We want to move now to item 7B, the draft budget.
what do you want to do with the budget? Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. Are we, President Atwater, are we clear to move to item 7B?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is the draft proposed budget for fiscal year 22-23, and our total budget for our total proposed budget is $31.16 million. And just as a reminder, I think we just said it, we'll be presenting our final budget at the June board meeting. So just next month, we'll be having another board meeting here, and we'll go through the finalized budget. Claudia, if you could advance the slide, I'll just speak to it for a minute here. So the planned technical work for the upcoming year will be largely focused on continuing our support of the permitting process with DWR, both in terms of preparing responses to any public comment on any engineering aspects of the project, and also supporting DWR as they prepare with other permit preparations, that sort of thing. We're also going to continue to be heavily engaged in stakeholder engagement, although it will be largely driven by the CEQA process here in the coming months. The next item, we'll continue our execution of the geotechnical program to better understand conditions delta-wide. So this is field data that will be really helpful to support evaluation of current assumptions on surface and underground conditions. It's really critical for validating conceptual design of many of the program components and providing additional information to DWR as it moves through the environmental review of the potential project. And then lastly, we'll be considering a range of engineering concepts and procurement and contracting strategies to be further evaluated during future design phases. So those are the main items that we'll be working on. Claudia, if you would go to the next slide, please. So here's a summary of our proposed budget, the total being $31.16 million. I will highlight that this proposed budget does include an unallocated reserve of $750,000 that's within the executive office subtask. In general, just to summarize it, the two blue bars that you see on the table here, there's the program management office at the top, 10.6 million. That's very similar to what we had for the current fiscal year. I think it's only a few $100,000 different. So some are less, some are more, but overall it washes out to a very similar number. The main difference between the current budget of 24.48 and the proposed budget for next year of 31.16 is coming out of the program initiation task. And then those are broken out between the engineering work. It's about a $4 million increase in engineering activities, and then about a $2 million increase in field work. So that accounts for the majority of the differences between the current fiscal year and the proposed budget for next fiscal year. Attached also to the package is a more detailed summary, and I wasn't going to go through all of that detail, but it is available for review, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Claudia, if you could just click through it real slowly, but at that point, that's my summary, but I welcome any questions that maybe folks have on the budget.
Director Anand, you have your hand raised.
Thank you, President Atwater. Just a quick question here, Graham. So the budget does include some of the underrun from the last two fiscal years going in. Does it include all of it?
So it includes about a little over $3 million of underrun is what we need to cover the budget for this proposed fiscal year. So there'll still be a balance remaining.
Is that balance intended to be spent in the following fiscal year? I know that's looking very far out, but is there a plan for that right now?
So currently we don't have it assigned to anything. It's out there, and it would be available for work that may be necessary, but at this point we don't have it assigned.
Okay, thank you.
Vice President Sarah Palmer.
I was just clarifying, because now I'm looking at that second page, which you really didn't want to go over in too much detail, but it had the $750,000 at the end of that executive office thing. That's the $750,000 you were talking about just a moment, right?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
Great. Any other questions from members of the board?
President Atwater, if I may.
Oh, please do.
Okay, so Graham, I think on the schedule that you were showing us, which was very helpful, could you maybe remind me what the difference between the two activities for DWR support was? I think one was actually for design changes from DWR, and the other one's for permit preparation. So I think I was trying to figure out. It sounds like both of those have something to do with engineering type, analysis and review. So just trying to tease out, what some of the major differences are in that type of work expected.
Sure. So the first one that's identified on the schedule is request for information or design changes. That's really more related to the work we've been doing, gearing up for the public draft of the EIR. So we had our initial conceptual design phase, and you can see the Central Eastern Bethany conceptual designs have been theoretically finished for quite some time, but that was just the bulk delivery of all of our materials. But since that time, the ongoing impact analyses from the environmental team have led us to various iterations and changes within the design, and we expect that to continue as we go through and as the public comment period. This is probably something that Carrie could answer a bit more clearly, but that's more related to the CEQA side. And then the permit preparations and hearings would be associated with other permits that will be supporting DWR. But Carrie, do you want to offer?
Sure. Just to elaborate a little, the requests for information or design changes, a lot of that really is requests for information. So as the environmental team is doing the analysis, there's a lot where they want a little bit more information on something, they want something clarified, they need something refined. And so I think the term design changes might be a little confusing because it sounds like we're continuing to change the project, and we're not. We're really just trying to get more information so the environmental team can refine their analysis. The support, I think that really is more focused on the water rights hearing that will be coming up next, and we are going to look to the DCA for support in that process.
Okay, great. Thank you. That was definitely helpful.
Very good. Any more questions? We'll move on then to 7C, the Conflict of Interest Code Amendment.
Thanks, President Atwater. I will be introducing this one. So the Political Reform Act requires the DCA, like all other local agencies, to adopt a conflict of interest code. This code identifies those positions within the organization that are required to file a Form 700 or a Statement of Economic Interest, which lists all of their potential financial interests, which could potentially create a conflict of interest in the future. We adopted our initial code in 2018 when the DCA was formed. And the Fair Political Practices Commission, which is responsible for administering this area, requires agencies to periodically review and update their code as appropriate. In reviewing our initial code, there have been a number of changes to the organizational structure. Just what the DCA was, what it looked like when it was initially formed is frankly much different than it is today. So the edits proposed before you would just update the code to reflect the current organizational structure. There was a notice period where these edits were put out for comment. We didn't receive any comment, and from staff's perspective, this is just a housekeeping, but happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Josh. Any questions from the board?
Oh, sure.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Of course. I just wanted to ask a quick question, and it's something that I probably should know. But as I'm looking at the different categories, they have the the category 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. And I know for most of this it applies to people who are contractors and working. What category? I know we all have to do a Form 700, but what category does the board actually fall under?
That's a great category. The board actually is required to disclose their interests in all of the categories. So the category system is just recognizing that some positions lower in the organization may have a more limited scope, so they're not required to file as many interests as board members are. You need to file all potentially reportable interests.
Okay, that's why I wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions? We appreciate a motion.
So move item 7C for approval.
We might also, do we also need to have public comment on this one?
Sure, I'm just assuming Claudia let me know if we had a public comment.
Okay, okay.
Second.
And we have a second from Tony S. Romero. Claudia, please.
Thank you, Sarah. We have not, President Atwater, we have not received any public comment requests for this particular item, and I will initiate the roll call. President Atwater.
Yes.
Director Millibar.
Aye.
Director Estamera.
Aye.
Director Palmer.
Aye.
Director Martin.
Aye.
Director Chang.
Aye.
Director Anaptawi.
Yes.
Excellent. Resolution is adopted.
Great. Let's move on to 7D, which is an update of our DCA travel policy. Who's going to give that presentation?
President Atwater, this is Josh. I'm going to help with this one as well. Before I get started, I just wanted to make sure that the board saw that we sent out an amended resolution for this item yesterday, so I wanted to make sure the board was looking at the corrected version. This is another cleanup item. So a joint exercise of powers agreement, or JEPA, with DWR requires the DCA to adopt a travel policy, which is approved by this board by resolution and then approved by DWR. We have a current policy in place, but like all policies, we want to periodically review them and update them where appropriate. In reviewing this policy, we identified some cleanup edits which would be helpful. Those are outlined in more detail in the staff report, but just very briefly, they are things like, rather than listing the tables from the General Services Administration or GSA rates, to just link to those rates. They are updated periodically. And this would allow us to have those GSA updates incorporated automatically into the policy as opposed to having to bring an amendment forward each time for board consideration. The amendments also clarify when meals can be claimed for some travel trips less than 12 hours. And we also clarified that mileage reimbursement, requires pre-approval regardless of length. I would just note, that I've kind of gone through all of these edits, but for the vast majority of our contracts, these edits are not in effect. For the majority of the DCA contracts, we operate under Part 1 of the policy, which has a multiplier for all of our contractors, and that multiplier includes all of their expense reimbursements. So for the vast majority of our contractors, this won't take in effect. We do have this more detailed travel policy for two reasons. The first being if for some reason the project receives federal funding, we'll need to move to that portion of the policy consistent with federal guidelines. And then second, there are some contracts that don't follow this, and we want to make sure we have a policy in place for those. And you'll see in the amended resolution that if approved by the board, we will go through and update all of our current agreements to make sure it's consistent with this updated policy. Thank you, and happy to answer any questions.
Great. Any questions? I do not see any hands raised. Director Chang, do you have a question?
No, sir. I'm good.
Okay. Are we ready to have approve the administrative changes that Josh just outlined?
I move we approve.
I'll second.
Great. We have a motion and a second. We'll just check any public comments on it. None. Claudia, go ahead and call the roll.
Gladly. President Atwater, I just want to confirm that we have not received any public comment requests for this item.
Great.
President Atwater.
Aye.
Director Millibar.
Aye.
Director Estamera.
Aye.
Director Palmer.
Aye.
Director Martin.
Aye.
Director Chang.
Aye.
And Director Anaptawi.
Yes.
Excellent. Resolution is adopted.
All right, let's move on to our agenda item 8, staff reports and announcements. And 8A is Josh's monthly update or report.
Thank you. My written report is in the packet. Just wanted to highlight one issue, related to meetings. We are still under AB 361, and that was on the agenda this afternoon. And as a reminder, we can still meet either in a remote-only or hybrid format as long as the statewide declaration of emergency remains in effect, or social distancing is recommended. I think, given the unfortunate spike in cases we're seeing, I think it's unlikely that'll go away anytime soon. That being said, we are watching two bills which are making their way through the legislature currently, AB 1944 and AB 2449, which would make permanent changes to the teleconference rules and provide greater flexibility for directors to participate remotely in meetings without having their location identified on the agenda and have that location public. Of the two, AB 1944 would provide the most flexibility. It would effectively allow this board to make a finding to allow directors to participate in meetings from private locations remotely without making that private location a publicly accessible. We would need to just post the name of the director participating remotely on the agenda and indicate it's at a private location. AB 2449 has a little bit more requirements, and of note of the DCA, it would actually require that if a director is participating remotely, at least a quorum of the board be participating from a single physical location, which is actually stricter than the current teleconference rules. It's still very early in the legislative process, so it's difficult to know if either of these bills will move forward and in what final format, but it's something we'll continue to keep our eye on and update the board as appropriate. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Josh. Any questions, members of the board? let's move on to 8B, Catano's Treasury Report.
Thank you, Director Atwater, and good afternoon, everyone. So you have in your package the Treasury Monthly Report for March and April 2022. We're now reporting 2 months at a time. And so the last time we reported this in March 1, 2022, our cash balance was actually a little low of above 422,000. And since then, we received money, we paid some bills, and as of April 30, 2022, we ended up with 1,169,808 as the balance. Subsequently, we did receive more receivables, so we had about 8 invoices, almost equaling that amount, about 1,486,818. As usual, we receive invoices, we wait and pay bills as we receive the money from DCO. So currently, we also give you information on our budget. As I said earlier, we try to match whatever a DCA has in their budget. So we will be updating our next budget accordingly once you pass the budget. But year to date through April, you will see that our expenses were a little less than actuals. Year to date at about 5 budgeted, what we budgeted, they're lower than budget by $5.4 million. And that's really, some of it is the delay because we might have receipts and we haven't paid, but we try to track same category, same level, but at this time we're still lagging a little bit just because of that timing difference when we pay our bills. So if you have any questions, happy to answer at this time.
Great, thank you, Catano. Any questions? I don't see any hands raised. We'll move on to 8C, Carrie Buckham, the DWR Environmental Managers Report.
Thank you, President Atwater and members of the board. We are continuing to move forward towards our release of a public draft environmental impact report this summer. So we've definitely hit the part of the process where we're working pretty hard to get that document out this summer. One other thing I wanted to highlight in my report, as Graham mentioned, the soil investigations have restarted, and so we have once again included a link to a map that shows the planned explorations in the next 2 weeks. We're updating that once a week, so if people are interested in what's coming up, they can find it on that website. And I think that's all. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for that quick update. 8D, any verbal reports, if any?
President Atwater, we do have one item from Nasli. So Nasli, I think you are.
Hi, everybody. I am skipping my usual section to make a little bit of announcement and a chance to show some appreciation, say some thanks. I wanted to let the board know that in about a month or so, I'll be wrapping up my time at the DCA. My family and I, as some of you know, are originally from New York City. We've had an extended stay in California because of the pandemic, but have made the decision to move back to New York City and to move back home. So I wanted to really take this opportunity, obviously, to let you all know, but to thank all of you. It's been a pleasure to work with all of you. Sarah, I'm going to point you out, especially because I got to work closest with you in a public setting. Special thanks to Graham, to Claudia, the entire DCA team, the board, and the DWR team, Carrie, Janet, and everyone. And especially to the folks in the Delta who, despite never agreeing with me, were still kind enough to take my calls and have meetings and engage in dialogue. I hope that's able to continue. I know that you've heard a few times from Julie Spezia from our team. I think between Julie, the DCA team, Janet and her entire team, and all the SWP comms folks, the team will be well taken care of. So mostly a chance to say hello, goodbye, and thank you so much for the opportunity to work with all of you. I'm grateful for it.
Well, Nasli, we're going to miss you, and I'm sure it's a great opportunity, and given, as you pointed out, your family's back in New York City, I hope it goes well, and I'm sure it will, and congratulations.
Huge thanks, President Atwater.
Director Gary Martin, you have your hand raised.
Thank you, President Atwater. Nazli, I just want to express our appreciation to your efforts and working with Sarah and keeping us on the high road. It was one of the most challenging tasks you had in meeting with all the folks up in the Delta area, and kept us doing the right thing by our constituents, and I appreciate that effort. And we have offer you best wishes as you move back east, and we'll be thinking about you.
Cheers, Director Martin. Thank you.
Sarah, you have some comments?
Is that me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I just wanted to say, Nazli, that I have so enjoyed working with you and seeing the work that you do. Nazli has been extraordinarily well respected by the folks in the Delta, even when they did not agree with the project and they didn't like what was going on with the project. Nazli was able to put a face on it that they truly respected what she had to say, and they trust her. So that's crucially important to see this kind of trust, and that Nazli was able to engender this, and she has been, I think, so valuable in terms of putting this project forward, and if any success we hopefully will have in getting this project truly done, we do owe in part to Nazli's help in her outreach.
I think I agree with you.
Thank you,
very
sir.
much. Tony, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to express my appreciation to Nazli also. She did such a great job, especially with our community committee. It really was a pleasure working with you, Nazli, and, having spent my tender years in New York City. I understand why you might want to go back. It's a pretty exciting place. So my best to you and your family. Take care. Hopefully we'll see you again out here in California. Take care,
Cheers,
Nazli.
Director
Thanks
Estromera.
again.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for the kind words. I'm grateful.
Yes.
Hey, President Atwater, if I could maybe say a word.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Robert.
So Nazli, I regret that we never had a chance to kind of meet in person. I showed up here today kind of hoping that there'd be a little bit more, physical people here. Not to say that the ones who are interviewing me here are not important. They are. But I really enjoyed listening to your reports about the dialogue, and I think to Director Palmer's comments. I think these discussions are never easy, but I think to kind of garner the respect that sounds like you've had with that interested stakeholders. I mean, it really is a fine art. So wishing you luck, and hoping that our paths will cross in the future.
I hope so.
President Atwater,
Thanks, Director Train.
Do you mind if I add a comment?
Any other comments from anybody?
President Atwater, do you mind if I add a comment?
Please go ahead, Graham.
Okay, I'll speak, Nazli, on behalf of the DCA family, just to say thank you so much. It has been incredible to have you here as part of the team, and I know you're going to do great, off on your future endeavors, but I look forward to seeing you again sometime soon. And again, just wanted to recognize all that you've done. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Graham.
Yeah.
Don't make me cry, people. That's not what we do at these meetings.
Well.
Brava.
Yes. Congratulations again. Great opportunity for you.
Thank you.
All right. Any other comments from anybody?
Just a quick one. I hate to kind of say anything after Nazli, because she's just she's just on the top. But we did have, as most of you know, not everybody was able to attend the meeting that we had during Aqua, but Carrie and Graham did such an excellent job presenting a lot of really good information, and I'm hoping that everybody has a chance to see it, or you've already had a chance to see it, because it was very good. There were a couple of new things, and they did a great job.
Very good. I think we're done with Agenda 8 and all the staff reports. Future agenda items. Any requests for future agenda? Director Palmer.
Yes, but you know me. Anyway, well, I would just like to know more about, I mean, maybe this is my ignorance speaking, but nonetheless, I would like to know more about the possible intersection with the East Bay Municipal Utilities District and the Delta Conveyance as to what's really going on with that.
Graham, you want to try and answer that question?
For the future. It doesn't have to be now.
Okay.
As a future item,
If
I think I
appropriate.
just take the note. Is that what you'd like to do here, President Atwater?
You're welcome to address it now, or if you'd like to, we'll put it on the future agenda item.
Well, as of now, it's strictly a preliminary notice of preparation, and everyone's aware of the status of our project, so it really just highlights the need to coordinate. I mean, I think. Sorry, I seem to have lost a mic for a minute. Carrie, I'll ask you if there's anything else you want to add?
No, I think, as you mentioned, it's really preliminary at this point. It's something that I think we want to track and coordinate with East Bay Mud, but at this point, I'm not sure there's a lot to report, but we can keep it sort of on our minds as we move forward.
Okay, great. Yeah, because I'd like to know where that might be occurring. I may not even know at this point, but there you go.
Yeah.
We do know, and it's identified
Right.
in the notice of preparation issued by East Bay Mud. It follows the existing McCollum Aqueduct pipeline, so there's a east-west transect through the southern part of the Delta, and naturally, sort of a north-south tunnel alignment is going to intersect at some point. So it's just a question of what that intersection would look like, and highlighting again the need to coordinate this activity. It's not an insurmountable issue; it's just an awareness.
Very good. Any other comments about that? Any other future agenda items?
President Atwater, if I may, sorry, I forgot to raise my hand.
There you go.
There, thank you. Well, first I'll just say, Nasli, it's already been said, but we truly missed, and we wish you the best. But for a future agenda item, you've been including some spotlights on staff at the DCA. I'd like to see if that's possible to highlight a few more if there's time on the future agenda. So really enjoyed the series.
Good suggestion. I'll defer to Graham to work on that, and when appropriate, go ahead and put it on the agenda.
We will absolutely. Yep, we'll include.
And Richard, thank you for holding down the fort for us.
Looks like he's froze.
Any other
Oh,
comments?
he's there? Oh,
If
there
not,
you go.
I think ready to adjourn. Looks
There you
like we had some technical problems there for a second.
I think it was just you.
So I think, are we ready to adjourn? Great.
Thank you.
As Vice President, I'm going to say meeting adjourned.
Yeah. There you go. I think we can. At the right time, it's at the end of the meeting.
Thank you, everyone.